Joining us now, Democratic Congressman of California, Eric Swalwell, member of the Homeland Security Committee. Look, you know what the Trump administration has said all along, that their actions on immigration are to make America safer. So as a member of the Homeland Committee, Security Committee, what you see in those pictures, is it making America safer?
No, it's terrorizing Americans, our friends and neighbors, otherwise known as immigrants, many of them. But these are folks who, they go to our churches, they work at our grocery stores, they work on construction sites, they work in childcare, they work in many jobs that would not be filled had they not done it. And I also just sit back and ask, who asked for this? Americans were told that the most violent individuals would be deported, and we're now seeing in the numbers that that is a very small percentage of who is being targeted. But Chris, we're not helpless. Democratic attorneys general in these states have their own law enforcement abilities. And I would recommend, and I have recommended to them, use those capabilities.
Give us an example of how.
Well, if these agents are committing assault or battery, you can charge them with assault and battery. So we're not helpless. You should meet their chaos with chaos. And by the way, I think you're standing on better laws than they're standing on. And they're also arresting non-immigrants. They're arresting mistakenly American citizens. They arrested a couple weeks ago a U.S. Marshal by mistake. They have deported a 4-year-old U.S. citizen boy battling cancer. So we're not helpless. The only language that they understand is strength. And if we are on our heels constantly, we're never going to protect the most vulnerable in our community. So we have to ratchet it up. And I really mean that.
Is Congress helpless?
No. Congress does not help us either. So as we go into the budgeting, when the government funding runs out in September, we can put in place in budgeting no masks. Like we can insist. I'm not going to fund anything that sends these masked agents like bank robber bandits.
But can you get the
community.
Republicans on board with that, Congressman?
Well, they need Democrats to pass a budget in the Senate. They need 60 votes in the Senate. So if we went back to just deporting the most violent in our community, and finding resources to legalize those who are here undocumented, but working and following our laws, we have the ability to do that. But that's all the more the case to be in the majority, because in the majority, that's where we really have leverage.
Let me ask you about something specific. The Trump administration is now ending the temporary status for about 80,000 Nicaraguans and Hondurans. And here's how the White House press secretary described why that's necessary in their mind. Take a listen.
Temporary protective status is temporary by definition. It is not meant to be a permanent path to residency or citizenship here in the United States of America. It was originally granted to Nicaraguans following a natural disaster in 1999. That doesn't sound very temporary to me. And as well as Hondurans in 1999 after the impact of Hurricane Mitch in 1998. If individuals from these countries want to come here, they have a legal pathway to do it.
So their argument is very clearly, if you were here on temporary status, you should have already worked your way to legal citizenship. What do you say to that? Well,
aside from the cruelty and like the privilege she stands on at that podium, probably not ever getting up before the crack of dawn to do a job or ever using her hands, to earn money for her family, I would say it doesn't make economic sense because we have shortages in agriculture, in childcare, in food and beverage, in hospitality. There are work shortages all over our country that Nicaraguans and Hondurans are filling. And if they're not committing violent crimes in our community, wouldn't we want them to take those jobs and have all of us pay less? So yes, technically you can just revoke that status. As I said, that's cruel. But I actually think it makes really poor economic sense if your goal is to lower costs on day one. We're nearing day 200. Donald Trump is 0 for 200 when you look at what we pay at Walmart, at Home Depot, at the grocery store.
Let me ask you about the story that's been dominating the news for the last 5 days. Certainly, coming from where you're coming from, you're no stranger to Mother Nature and the havoc that she can wreak. So in Texas, your Democratic colleague, Betty Thompson, is calling for the administration to formally nominate a FEMA administrator and for Congress to receive a briefing by the agency in the wake of these floods. Quote, the president threatening to eliminate FEMA, firing scientists and muzzling experts helps no one and puts us all in danger. He needs to do better and provide actual leadership. Wildfires, obviously something you know about, flooding there. What can be done, do you think? And can something like this, where innocent children asleep in their beds are swept to their deaths, can that provoke some sort of change and reassessment of how we deal with the dangers that are clearly increasing in the wake of climate change?
So first, let me just say, as a parent of 3 little kids who are at camp right now, I know when you drop off your kids, your heart drops because you've put every ounce of your life into protecting them, and then you are putting them into the hands of strangers who you hope are trained, but more importantly, that they have the best information about potential weather catastrophes that could hit them. And so what my colleague, Benny Thompson, is saying is, yes, we need to seek accountability here. Don't jump to conclusions. But it's not surprising that if you fire senior leadership who run the National Weather Service, you're not going to get the best weather predictions. If you lay off folks at the FAA or air traffic controllers, we're going to be less safe when we fly. So these cuts that we've seen in government are not making us safer. They're endangering those who we love the most, our future, our kids. So there has to be accountability. And that also starts, by the way, with having, as he said, a FEMA director. You know, the buck has to stop at the very top. And if there's not a FEMA director, where will you find accountability?
Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you.
My pleasure.
It's good to see you here on set.